I moved into a basement apartment last year during my final year of college. It wasn't exactly my dream place, but rent was cheap and I didn't have many options. The apartment was part of an old house in a historic neighborhood divided into separate units. My landlord, Mr. Harper, was an older guy in his 70s, quiet but polite. He gave me a quick tour when I moved in and pointed out all the essentials: the bathroom, the kitchen, and the tiny laundry nook near the back. But there was one thing that stood out during the tour: a heavy, locked door at the end of the hallway near my bedroom. When I asked about it, Mr. Harper said it was just storage and told me not to worry about it. No reason to open it, he said with a shrug. It's just old junk in there. Something about the way he said it felt off. His tone wasn't annoyed or stern. It was almost like he didn't want to talk about it at all. But I let it go. It didn't seem worth pressing over a locked door. At first, living there was fine. The place was damp, but I chalked that up to it being a basement. I set up a dehumidifier, decorated the place with a few posters, and tried to make it feel like home. But after a few weeks, things started getting strange. One night, as I was falling asleep, I heard a faint tapping sound. It was soft and irregular, like someone lightly knocking on wood. I paused the movie I was watching on my laptop to listen, but it stopped. I figured it was just pipes or the building settling and didn't think much of it. But the next night, it happened again. This time, the tapping was louder, more deliberate. It seemed to be coming from the locked door at the end of the hallway. I sat up in bed, staring at the door through the darkness. I waited for it to stop, and after a few minutes, it did. I told myself it had to be a rodent or something. It was an old house, after all. But in the back of my mind, I couldn't shake the thought of Mr. Harper's vague explanation about the door. A week later, the tapping escalated to something worse. I was brushing my teeth before bed when I heard loud banging coming from the hallway. It was as if someone or something was pounding on the other side of the locked door. My heart shot into my throat as I froze, toothbrush still in hand. I crept toward the hallway and stared at the door. The banging was steady, deliberate. The whole door seemed to shake with each hit. "Hello?" I called out, my voice cracking. I don't know why I even said anything. There was no response, but the banging suddenly stopped. The silence was almost worse than the noise itself. I backed away and locked myself in my bedroom, trying to convince myself that maybe it was just a plumbing issue. But deep down, I didn't believe that. Not anymore. The next morning, I asked Mr. Harper about the door again. I told him I'd been hearing noises and asked if there might be an animal trapped inside. His expression changed immediately. His usual polite demeanor was replaced by a tight-lipped frown. "There's nothing in there," he said quickly. "Just leave it alone." His tone was sharper than I expected, and I could tell he wasn't going to entertain any further questions. I didn't push it, but the interaction left me feeling uneasy. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept staring at the hallway from my bed, waiting for the noises to start again. When they didn't, I felt almost relieved. But around 2 a.m., I noticed something new. The hallway light, which I always left on, began flickering. The dim bulb buzzed faintly before going out completely, plunging the hallway into darkness. I grabbed my phone for light and decided I'd had enough. I needed to know what was behind that door. I got up, found a small screwdriver in my kitchen drawer, and made my way down the hall. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The lock was old and rusty, and it took some effort, but I eventually managed to jimmy it open. The door creaked as I pushed it inward, revealing a small, pitch-black room. The air inside was freezing cold, far colder than the rest of the apartment, and it smelled faintly of mildew and something metallic. I shone my phone's flashlight inside and saw nothing. The room was empty, except for an old wooden chair sitting in the center. The chair looked ancient, its wood warped and splintered, as if it had been left to rot for decades. But as I stepped inside, something felt wrong. The air felt heavier, pressing down on me like a weight. I turned to leave, but before I could take a step, the door slammed shut behind me. I spun around, panic surging through me. I tried the doorknob, but it wouldn't budge. Then the whispers started. At first, they were faint, barely audible, but they grew louder and louder until they filled the room. I couldn't make out what they were saying. It was like multiple voices, overlapping and echoing. My flashlight flickered, and in the dim light, I swore I saw shadows moving along the walls. I started banging on the door, screaming for help, but no one came. The whispers grew deafening, and the shadows began to converge toward the chair in the center of the room. I don't remember how long I was trapped in there. It felt like hours. But suddenly the door burst open, and I stumbled out into the hallway. I didn't stop to look back. I grabbed my keys and bolted out of the apartment, not even bothering to lock the front door. I drove straight to a friend's house and didn't go back until I had movers with me to pack up my stuff. I never saw Mr. Harper again. He didn't answer my calls, and the movers told me the apartment looked like it hadn't been lived in for years. The chair in the locked room was gone, and no one could explain why. To this day, I have no idea what was really behind that door, or what I let out when I opened it. But sometimes, late at night, I still hear those whispers in the back of my mind.